Hey there everyone, it's JC. I have a bonus card to share outside of my regularly scheduled Perfect Pairing series, showcasing a product I designed for Altenew. I have had this design in mind for quite some time, so I'm glad to share the surprising result with you today. In September 2024, I helped design one of two items for the Altenew Sweet Shop retreat. This is one of them. This is Gourmet Garland Layering Stencil Set. This was my first experience with designing a product myself, and I drew a lot of inspiration from my mom's collection of antique dessert plates. That wonderful hand-painted blue on top of porcelain with gold plate rims or sometimes blue rims. But either way, I wanted a sort of garland arrangement with leaves that tie into the theme of Sweet Shop. So all of these leaves in the set were designed with food in mind. So layers number 1 and number 2 are mint leaves, 3 and 4 are lemon verbena, and 5 and 6 are nasturtium. Again, these are edible or relate to food in some sort of way, and you get this nice arrangement that fits comfortably on an A2 sized card front. I've made many other product samples using this set already, but I really wanted to tie in the original inspiration, the antique dessert plates, in this card design. To start, I'll need my 9x12 sticky mat grid, and I'm laying this on top of my Altenew cutting mat. I'll position an A2 panel of heavyweight white cardstock. And I feel like the set of fresh dye inks that are going to give me that nice antique feel with a wide variety of range of values is Northern Shore Fresh Dye inks. So I will just be sticking to this family of inks, so that's Polar Bear, Icy Water, Winter Lake, and Arctic Mountain. And essentially I will go in numerical order for the stencil layers, starting with stencil number 1. And center the stencil on top of my panel. Then working in lightest to darkest ink and lightest to darkest mini ink blending tools, I'll start with Polar Bear on the mint leaves and create a nice soft gradient of the mint leaves. This is the first layer of Polar Bear. You'll see that's very light. Then I'll move on to stencil layer number 2 and really easily align the openings of the stencil. For this layer, I'll use Icy Water to completely fill and saturate this layer. Here's the reveal of Icy Water. So this completes the mint leaves. Layers 3 and 4 are the lemon verbena. And you'll see how easy it is to quickly align and fill this next layer. So I will use Icy Water on stencil layer number 3 to completely fill the open areas of this image. Again, this is stencil layer number 3 with Icy Water. Then next we'll fill in the detail layer of the lemon verbena with stencil layer number 4. I'll move down my gradient of inks to Winter Lake and fill in this layer. Here's the reveal of Winter Lake. Then for the last 2 stencil layers, we'll be filling in the nasturtium leaves. I will fill in these open areas with Winter Lake. And this time, to get a more solid wash of this color, I'll switch to a large ink blending tool. And I'll completely fill this layer with Winter Lake. Then finally, this is Gourmet Garland's stencil layer number 6. With this layer, we're creating the vein details of the circular nasturtium leaves. And it's really easy to fill this with a mini ink blending brush to really give that suggestion of a rounded leaf. So we're not going to end this here. I'm looking in my set of dual-tipped water-based markers for a blue that's sort of similar in tone to these cooler blues. And what I like about Tahitian Terrace is that desert nice. It's a nice cool blue, and I think it's going to match the images and the tones that are in this stencil set already. So like I mentioned, I'm grabbing Desert Night from Tahitian Terrace. And with the fine tip that's in this pen set, I'm going to accentuate some of the vein details with really rough sketched lines, barely outlining the mint leaves, creating little vein feathered strokes. And for me, I'm looking for a more irregular shape. And some hash line details to make it look like these are true vintage plates. To make your card front look like it is a true vintage plate. So I'm adding in hash lines wherever I feel like there's depth, and also trying to separate the images in the stencil set. Since all the images are of one hue, this nice cool blue. In fact, if you have registered for my Beautiful Details 2 class, you might also hear it referred to as Beautiful Details, the next layer. I do a similar technique in that class by adding small details to stenciled images. So I highly recommend that you check that out and join me over at Altenew Academy for that class. You'll see I'm intentionally leaving some leaves with outline details, some leaves without. I'm not completely outlining a single leaf, adding little hash line details. And I want to distribute this detail around the image. I feel like it helps it look a little bit more intentional. So I've added a few line details, and before I get too carried away with this image, I'll add little dots to just the nasturtium leaves, just to balance the lines. And just like I did with the lemon verbena and the mint leaves, I'm not adding dots to all of the images, just to select areas where I feel like there's some depth. Maybe a nasturtium leaf overlaps another one, so I create this illusion of depth with dots. Now that I'm looking at Tahitian Terrace again, maybe I'll grab Eastern Sky, and just on the mint leaves, so stencil layers number 1 and 2, I'll add these brush stroke details with the brush nib. And I think this will help reinforce the fact that the mint leaves are further in the back of this gourmet garland, and the nasturtium leaves are more in the front. Just like that, not too much. To really enforce the antique plate feeling of this card, I'm going to transfer this panel to my stamp wheel. And I'm just going to use the original size stamp wheel with the black slim grip mat and position my stencil panel in the center. In my stash, I was looking for a stamp image with really fine and small leaf details. I'm sure in your stash you'll find an adequate substitute, but otherwise I will have this one linked in the description box. And what I want to do is create a dinner plate border with one of the images found in this set. So I'm using this more rosemary type image and positioning this up here, because what I want to do is create a circular arrangement to envelop this card. I'll grab the darkest ink we were using earlier. This is Arctic Mountain, and I will repeat stamp this rosemary image from Plants and Vases Mini Delight. And by using the stamp wheel, I can really easily stamp the top half of this arrangement. Let's see if it'll actually show up if I stamp it off. I will still try to partially stamp and continue this image throughout the edges of the panel, just like that. Then I'll do this one last time on this overhang to complete the circle. I want to add a little bit of shine to this panel before I work on other focal elements of this card. From the Essential Permanent Marker set, I'll use the gold marker, and with this marker I'll add little berry details and dots, following the path of this rosemary branch that we just stamped, creating the illusion of an antique gilded edge. And I do want to create varying sizes of these gold dots throughout the border. And I'm happy with that fill. I can always add more dots if I want to. I'm going to put this panel aside for just a moment. And off camera, I already cut the floral pieces in Craft a Flower Hibiscus layering die set. Again, just to keep the edible theme going. Hibiscus is in a lot of green teas sometimes. So I thought this would be a nice focal element to tie into this edible-like theme. So here are some of the layers that I have cut from vellum, as well as the flower center pieces. And I cut the third layers for the keyhole and the arrow alignment from white cardstock, just to separate the petal elements from the flower centers. And I'm not going to ink blend on these. I'm using Altenew's glue to adhere all these layers together, following the alignment guide on the packaging. I'll use a variety of tools to make sure that these floral layers stay adhered. And now I think the only thing my dessert plate antique card is missing is a sentiment. So I'm going to set these aside. I don't want to overshadow the stenciled layers and the floral layers that I have on this card, so I want to pick a really bold yet compact sentiment. And I feel like there's a lot to choose from the Craft Your Life project kit, Magnificent Magnolias. And I love that this also has the offset sentiment dies in the coordinating die set. And if you didn't have Craft a Flower Hibiscus, you could certainly have used the Craft Your Life project kit to replace the hibiscus flowers that I just die cut and glued. I transferred my stencil panel to a folded note card base. Then I added little foam pieces to the back of my hibiscus to kind of hide the opening of the alignment guides found on the Craft a Flower, just to make it look less obvious on my card front. And I'll position these petals to not hide too much of my stenciled background that I worked on. And once I like the position of my vellum hibiscus, then I'll add in my stamped sentiment from Craft Your Life project kit, Magnificent Magnolias, and I stamped this in Arctic Mountain, so that darkest ink that's on the border of my dessert plate. And with Altenew's glue, I'll gently let this float on top of the flowers. I like that the vellum sort of curls already and pushes the sentiment forward. I feel like I need a little bit more sweetness and warmth to this card, so I'm using the light gold pearl dots to sort of look like sugared pearls on top of this arrangement while this is all drying. And after gluing down those light gold pearl dots around my floral arrangement, that finishes this mix and match of different Altenew products coupled with my Gourmet Garland layering stencil set, to finally draw in the inspiration for the layered stencil set, which is an antique dessert plate inspired by the collection of porcelain that was in my childhood home growing up. So it's nice to finally recreate the idea I had originally. Again, this is one of 2 items that I helped design for Altenew's Sweet Shop Retreat in 2024. Gourmet Garland stencil as well as other items that I used in this card are going to be linked in the description box. I would be so incredibly honored if you checked out the links to the Altenew shop. And if you do decide to pick up Gourmet Garland stencil or already have it, please tag me at jc.gaspar and at Altenew LLC. I'd love to see the projects that you made using my layering stencil set. Thank you so much for checking out this extra video featuring the Gourmet Garland layering stencil from Altenew. Over on my Instagram Reels, I shared this 1-layer project as a bonus. But anyway, stay tuned. This is one of 2 products I helped design for Altenew for Sweet Shop, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.